Welcome everyone to the Division B, C, and F Treasurer Breakout. I will be doing my best to prepare you with the what and the how to be a treasurer. A show of hands, either physically in the camera or digitally in Zoom. How many have been a treasurer before at Toastmasters? Awesome. Okay. And how many love spreadsheets?
The what?
How many love spreadsheets? Okay. Good to know. Got it. So this may be kind of an overview. I'll definitely cater as best I can to people who haven't had exposure to treasurer. I've found in my experience that I don't know, there seems to always be gaps every time there is a treasurer training. So I'm really glad that you're here, both to learn what you might not have heard before that is still true, regardless of the fact you haven't heard it, or two, maybe you can help fill in gaps I have and what training I've received or what I've figured out over the times that I've done this role. So let's get right into it. I've got myself a little checklist here. The first thing that was a biggest surprise to me, my first time being a treasurer, was the use of club funds. So that's one of the things I want to cover first. Toastmasters on the website, I'll put this in the chat, has a web page devoted to the appropriate or inappropriate use of club funds. This was eye-opening for me, being that we're a 501c3 by virtue of being a club under Toastmasters International. Our hands are interestingly tied in what we can and can't spend our money on. I think I'm going to start with the unauthorized use so you can understand the scope of the challenge that lies before us, because as treasurer, as anybody in finance of any organization, you get to be the officer of no. No, we can't do that. No, we can't spend money in that way. We'll find ways to introduce positive aspects, but let's focus on what we can't do. Then we can get creative with what we can do. First thing, pathways, educational materials. So you, as a club, using club funds, we cannot use those funds to pay for anyone's club dues. Doesn't matter if their house burned down in a fire. It doesn't matter if they've been a member for 200 years. We can't use club funds to pay for someone's pathway. They have to cover that $20 charge themselves. I'll probably say this a couple of times. Now, because the club can't do it, it doesn't mean, or just because the club can't do it, it doesn't mean that individual members can't fund someone's dues or pathways path out of their own pocket. It just can't pass through the club funds first, right? It can be a private transaction between two people who care about each other as club members or whatever, but it's the club itself that can't pay. Notice here too, parties and social gatherings. That is a pretty big one. There's some creativity that we can do here, but this is more around the idea of you can't have like an off-site thing where I don't know. We'll cover the creativity. I'm honestly not sure what they're prohibiting here when you factor in that we can use money for refreshments for club meetings. So if you just make your party or social gathering a club meeting, then you can have catering as refreshments, perhaps, or that sort of thing. Yeah. Scholarships. So this would be, I interpret this as member dues, right? So there's the pathway path, that $20, but then there's also Toastmasters dues or club dues. It's sort of a paperwork gymnastics, but you might, as a club, be able to decide to waive your club dues if you charge those normally. Just know that you're going to need a good reason, right? Because it's got to be ratified by your club membership. So it had to be a decision that club members could understand and agree to, or at least see the sense behind. And then if the scholarships is not clear, then it spells it out right here. You, as a club, using club funds, you cannot pay for an individual's dues. Again, private party transaction, like I often pay my girlfriend's dues. She's presently not employed in this. I want to keep her in Toastmasters. She wants to stay in Toastmasters. So I personally pay that, but I don't use club funds to do that. And then finally, as a nonprofit ourselves, we cannot give to other nonprofits. Exception applies, and that's where the authorized use comes in. Interestingly, though we can't pay for Pathways educational materials, we can't pay for scholarships, and we can't pay for dues, as a club, you can purchase educational materials and administrative materials for club member use. How that is different than this is that we can pay for educational materials so long as they're not pathways, scholarships, or dues. That might be pen and like paper to print PDFs that are articles, maybe, and you know, if you know better than this, let me know. But just thinking off the cuff here, perhaps as a club, you could get a subscription to Curiosity Stream and get together as a club and watch some documentary or speech that's available on that platform and comment and evaluate that speaker as a club. I don't know, but if that's earmarked as educational around speaking and leadership, then you might be able to justify it. Administrative materials would be like name tags, basically anything from the Toastmasters store is what I interpret this for as an easy interpretation. Meeting place rental fees. Again, I hear for club meetings in this. Maybe I'm being too strict in my understanding of this bullet point. You know, wherever we meet as a club, we might donate. Like rental fees can also be kind of interpreted. The church that my home club meets at doesn't officially charge rent, but we're so grateful to them hosting us because our prior place was going to charge like $160 a month, I think, to meet once a week. So we were so grateful that we decided as a club to donate, which, yeah, we count it as rent. I mean, I guess technically we're donating because they're not charging us, but we are maintaining that relationship and paying $80 a month. That's half of what we would have to pay if we stayed where we were. And we're earmarking that, budgeting it, and categorizing it as a rental fee. And then finally, you can't donate to other organizations, but you can donate to the Ralph C. Smedley Memorial Fund. Maybe that's a reward you could offer to a club member who completes the most Acorn Award sheets, you know, the list of 25 names and contact info of people that have been invited. Whoever does the most, you could maybe as a club make a donation to this fund in their honor. I'm just spitballing bits of ideas here. And then there's another paragraph on the use of club funds around receiving funds in the form of fundraising. So we'll cover dues in a moment, the how and the what and the why of that. But we can also receive funds as donations from club members. And there's these rules here. Again, I'm just going to put this in the chat. Oh, I did already. Cool. And I'm not going to cover fundraising here, but know that this resource is available. So as soon as your fellow officers bring up, hey, I'm thinking about doing a fundraiser, that's when you go and search in Toastmasters or find wherever you put this link, find that in your bookmarks, or just go to the search on Toastmasters and search club funds. You could probably search fundraising too, and it'll take you straight here. Apparently there's another resource here, funding training. I have not reviewed that to know if it's valuable or not. but I will include it in the chat for your research and edification. Any questions about the use of club funds? I know for some of you that may have been a surprise. You may be worried about getting in trouble for breaking some of these rules if you didn't know about them beforehand. But just know, the best time to use club funds appropriately was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. I won't tell on you if you don't tell on you. And you don't even have to tell me that you've been doing it wrong. But if you have questions, maybe we can get the wisdom of this crowd and shop some ideas on how to do things as a club, or continue to do things as a club that may have been off limits officially. Anyone?
Well, I have a quick question about when it says refreshments for club meetings and must be approved by the club. Does that mean the majority of, like, you put that up for a vote and then the majority of the club approves for, when it says refreshments for club meetings and that it must be approved? Is that that's just a majority, or is it just the officers?
This does say majority.
Okay.
And you know what? I'll be honest. Our club hasn't always followed that.
Okay.
It's hard to keep all these rules in your head, and it's also hard to research these every time you're in an officers meeting and want to decide something. There is the rule, though, that every decision of the officers should be ratified by the club. And what ratified means to you as officers or to your club may be different. One thing my home club does is we provide the meeting minutes, which will always include our decisions, and make that available to all members, giving them an opportunity to say something about it. Like if they greatly disagree with that decision or that approach, they can. It obviously also creates an opportunity for them to chime in and say, hey, I'd like to help with this effort. Now that I know that, thank you for pointing it out. As an incoming treasurer, I will do this with my home club. After I have it reviewed by my fellow officers and they're good with it, then I will take the steps to present it to the club as well. I think Wally, I think you put your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is the club precluded from making a donation to the district or a district basket or something? When we were meeting face to face, we would oftentimes have, I forget what you call them, but those situations where people will go in and bet on things, put in bids, silent auctions. So are we precluded from making a monetary gift to fund a silent auction component at a district?
I believe so. I know, if I recall correctly, those years past, as a treasurer who read this and tried to understand it and honor it as best I could, being a new Toastmaster at the time and all, I think the line I drew is that we couldn't, but members could pool their money together. And, we could take up a collection to create that basket to then give to the district.
Okay. So it can be done unofficially by the club.
Yeah, club members can put their money together however they like. It's just if they put it in the club treasury, then that ties our hands as to how we use those.
Oh, okay. You just answered my question. To come out of the treasury, we got a problem.
Yeah,
that's right, Wally. What we always did is everybody just pooled the resources. So people brought different pieces of it and then put the basket all together.
Okay.
It's kind of like potluck. If you do a potluck open house, everybody just brings a different food. We put it all together so it doesn't cost anybody a lot, but it doesn't come out of the club treasury.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And come to think of it, coming back to this educational material and administrative materials, I would say that equipment would qualify for that category too. So a TV, so that when somebody's at the lectern to share their slides, everyone in the audience can see. that's an educational material, right? That's something that the club is using to facilitate our education as public speakers. Same thing with virtual meeting space, and that's equipment necessary in order to meet. So if you as a club want to invest in a portal TV or two so that you can have effective hybrid club meetings, that's recommended, I would say, at least in my estimation. I don't think there's anything that explicitly says to do so or to not do so here. But again, it can fall under educational and administrative materials.
And I think probably, Nick, that would be something that you'd run by the club too and say, it's been proposed that we buy a camera so that we can have better online meetings, and then everybody votes on it, and then you go do it. I tell you, for educational materials, also what might fall into there is speechcraft, if the club wants to do a speechcraft, or youth leadership if they want to sponsor youth leadership, because both of those would be considered educational materials. That's a great point, and I'm glad you said so. That's a question I had in the back of my mind. And with that, some clubs have such a long history that they might have a bigger balance in their bank account than they're supposed to. As a nonprofit, you're supposed to kind of break even every year. So my home club, having been 40 years old, our bank account is in 4 digits, and that's not a good thing. One thing I'm going to pitch to the officers is that since we can't pay for the pathways education, we can't have scholarships, and we can't pay dues, is when we do our speechcraft this year, the club will pay the speechcraft material fee because we can, and we have the money, like we need to use the money for something, but still charge the speechcrafters their dues, like whatever amount their dues would be. So that way, by the end of the speechcraft session, we can tell them, oh, by the way, by going through speechcraft, you can be a Toastmaster for the next 6 months for free, right? Like from their experience perspective, they didn't have to pay for being a Toastmaster. They paid for being a speechcrafter. And then the other side of it is if they don't want to become a Toastmaster, if they waive that choice, that even though it's been paid for, they don't want to be a Toastmaster, well, then that $45 can be received as a donation in the club funds. Maybe it ends up being a fundraiser. If enough people go through speechcraft, don't become a member, we might end up with more money than we started by accident. But that would be just another good problem to solve. Any other questions on this so far? We will cover a budget on its own, probably maybe even the next topic. But I want to make sure that if you've got a thought that's gnawing at you right now, that we cover it in this context. Let's see, was there anything in the chat? No, okay. Great, we will move on to the next thing. Oh, budget template. So years ago, I think the 2017, 2018 year, I got on Google Sheets and found a company budget template. Let's see if I can find it again. Apps. And I'm sure Excel has one as well. I'm showing Google Sheets because it's free and everyone can access that. So here we go, annual budget. I use this as sort of my starter to put something together to pitch to officers and so on. Being a spreadsheet nerd, I took this and ran with it. The thing with this that's great is it is a budget. You can project out what you think you're going to pay by month. You'll notice it's January to December. You can very easily just change this to July, August, and then expand it out. Hey, look, now it's our Toastmasters year. Beautiful. What I'll do is share my budget from my home club. It's unfinished, so don't think this is what we're going to do, but this is my draft so far. We still have to vote on it and get feedback from everyone.
but in it, I added a tab for statement of accounts. So I know for each member how much money I should expect from them. This was something that was recommended to me at TLI when I first joined, is that start of the Toastmasters year, take every one of your members and create an account for them and have an accounts receivable line for the amount of money you expect for them for the entire Toastmasters year, right? This is our expected income for the year. And that would just resonated with me so well. And then when it comes time to collect dues, you mark that transaction of whatever club dues are for your club, and you just deduct from this account. So for us, with our club dues included, it's $60 every 6 months. And so when I collect dues for Bill Crispin, I'll just put in a transaction for $60 and take it out of this account. And now I know that we can expect another $60 from Bill by the end of the Toastmasters year. Cindy French, she did a one and done but she did it like in the middle of the year. So I only expect $60 from her by the end of the Toastmasters year. She's already paid for the first half of this year. I don't want this to be like a total budget training, but just know that you will want to have a budget and you'll want to track your transactions against that budget. If you're a spreadsheet nerd, you can probably put something together for yourself. You can also take what I've put together and run with it however you like. One thing I also recommend, if you haven't done so already, especially now that we're all hybrid or maybe still virtual only, is creating a club Venmo account so that you can collect virtual table cash. It can be kind of tricky to jump through the hoops to associate your bank account with a club account, especially if you've already done that somehow. And it's like we had that issue back when Venmo only did personal transactions. I believe Venmo has now made it so that businesses can have Venmo accounts. There may be a fee associated to that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it myself or on behalf of my club yet, but I'm pretty sure Venmo is going to want some action on business transactions. Let's see. Anybody want me to go into any detail on any of this so far? I want to make sure I'm creating value, but I'm also not talking down to you. I noticed, many of you raised your hands when you said you've been treasurer before.
One question I would have is, how do you handle a situation where a person, and this happens with officers, and sometimes the officers do the same thing for other members, go online to Toastmasters International and pay the annual dues, but the dues are not paid to me as the treasurer, but they pay them directly. And all I know is after contacting them and going online and looking at the roster that their dues have been paid. How do you handle that?
Well, I am blessed in that my officers listen to me. And
well, we got a stubborn bunch here in Cook.
Sure, I hear you. And I think there's ways around it. Coming to that, like you said, going to Club Central, and this is sort of the hub for any club officer, especially treasurers. Here's the club roster you mentioned. And this is a great resource to find out at a glance how much people are paid up into. You can sort this list by paid until. And this can be handy for knowing who to follow up with. So this is where I saw that Cindy French has paid up until March 31st. Since we seem to all be spreadsheet nerds, you can also export to Excel. I think the fact that they put a sort on paid until, you probably don't need to for this use case. But if you wanted to sort by anything else, then you could do that by exporting to Excel. Who knows? Maybe you wanted to sort a different direction on paid until. Coming back to Club Central, but let's go back to roster. So here, let's say this is how I learned that Cindy paid up, right? And I needed to do something with that. Well, I'm going to go back to Leadership Central, Club Central, and look at the, is it club financials? Yeah, review club receipts and statements. So here I can see recent transactions and look at who it was paid for, right? And what it was paid up until and how much was paid. So I can go back into my spreadsheet where I'm tracking all transactions, Venmo transactions, Square transactions, bank transactions. Go back to this spreadsheet because this is, for me, this is the budget as well as where I'm keeping my so-called ledger. So I can put in here, okay, recorded on this day, but turns out somebody paid something at the start of the year. And the club paid Zach Benner's dues. We received $45, but then we turned around and spent $45, putting in the categories, and I can put in the receipt number. If you as a treasurer want to track to that extent, I know lots of treasurers don't want to bother with that. Lots of treasurers don't want to do a double entry accounting or this quasi pseudo double entry accounting that I'm doing. For me, it just made it easier to track accounts, because here what I would do is on the expense line, I would put Zach Benner, and here on the account line, maybe do Toastmasters International. So now in my statement of accounts, I can see that there's $45 that went there. And I can see now that, oh wait, I missed a step. Zach Benner. Yeah, see now it's deducted from 120 to this is a cool little calculation that I learned actually figuring out how to do this, because what I wanted was to see all the members, and I wanted to see this list of what's the ending balance of all of our bank account transactions. And this is like an Excel or Google Sheets calculation where you can do kind of a lookup of all of the instances where this name shows up in my transactions, and then it does a sum on the transaction line or the transaction column, the amount column. So now I know the net balance of anything there. And if you hear background noise, I apologize. My mowing company is doing my lawn. Didn't know they'd be doing that. The other thing that is unique, I think this is unique to Google Sheets, and I didn't know about it except through reverse engineering this template. There's this unique, and I'm doing a unique on transactions in the I column. So if you go into the transactions, the I column is where I put the quote account. And what it'll do is it'll take this entire list of various transactions and accounts and return that name uniquely. So wherever this shows up once, at least once in my transactions, it's going to show up here. And I suppose to demonstrate that, let's say we get a new member, right? August 1st, we get a new member. I don't know, April O'Neill. Bonus points if you know what that's a reference to. Paid.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Nice. Yeah. And this would go on the April O'Neill account. Now, if I go to my statement of accounts, there she showed up. And I didn't finish. Well, actually, I needed now trickle this down. So there we go. So I can see the statement of accounts there. And my summation is on this amount column, which is just a simple calculation of the difference between these two. And I know this isn't debit and credit. I always have a hard time keeping debit and credit straight. I only went through accounting 1 and 2 in college several years ago, and I don't like to relearn it every time. So I just said to myself, okay, this is money coming in to the club funds, and this is money going out from the club funds. And that's how I keep it straight personally. Let's see. Yeah, so as far as budget though, like the philosophy of budgeting, you know that your club has so many members right now, and you know how much it costs per member. Should probably update this. And right now our club roster is 23. Let's assume, for our sake, because of DCP, if we have more than 20 members, we qualify for DCP. So let's just say we project to have the same number of members by the end of the year. Well, our club dues times those number of members is so much money. And because the dues deadline is October 1st, I, as a treasurer, am going to work to get all those funds, those 23 members times 60, in by or during September, right? And then when April 1st comes around, I'm hopefully going to have all of our dues paid by that month. That's my budget. That's my expectation. That's my goal, right? That's what the budget is there for, is to track our progress towards a goal and our expectations. Same with new members, right? If I put my finger to the wind and thought, all right, we're going to get 2 new members per quarter. That's partly because the DCP program, we get 2 points if we can get 8 new members. It's not net new members necessarily, but just new people signing up, new members joining. Perhaps you lose 8 other members, but you at least got 8 members. But let's budget for growth and expect this income. I separated it out by quarter. So every 3rd month, I put in the dues that we'd expect to receive for someone joining at the time that we collect dues. Personally, I separated out regular and irregular, thinking like this is money we can fairly reliably budget. New member fees, can't count on that necessarily because people who join might be reinstating. But assuming new members are truly new members, we would also collect $40, $20 per new member to pay their new member fee. And then also projecting out, if we are going to maintain that $80 to the per month. And well, actually this was budgeting based off of how much money we get from club members in table cash donations. And I just projected that out. Your results and expectations will vary. Do I have any other? But this is it as far as income, right? We, as a club, the only other avenue we have to receive funds is fundraising. And it may not make sense to put this as a line item unless you know of a club member who's going to do a fundraising project for the club, or it's something that the officers have said need to be done, and you've got a fundraising goal. Well, then you can put that in there. Hey, we're going to have a fundraiser in November and we're hoping to earn $1,000. Well, let's budget for that. And that way we have a line in the sand to know how well we did when we compare that against our transactions. Expenses are the same, and that list is a bit longer. We as a club officers just decided to put yard signs out. We're a hybrid club, and we got on Toastmasters.org and bought a sidewalk sign and 2 yard signs plus shipping. That was between $150 to $200. That's in our budget. These are things that you pay for, right? You might have a domain name as a club. Somebody's paying for that. Maybe it's the club, maybe it's the generosity of a club member. If it's the club, though, you know that expense is going to come, and you know when it's going to come because it's an annual cost. And this is the abbreviation of the church that we meet at. So here's that $80 I told you about. You're just planning. You know what's going to happen. Put it down and see if it balances out. And if it doesn't, then you know to do a fundraiser. In our case, here, when I look at income versus expenses, we are projecting to have a very small growth. Actual variance doesn't really matter just yet because we're so early in the year. And again, my budget hasn't even been approved yet. But the biggest takeaway here is that you should have a budget. You should budget for what and when you expect income, and the what and when you expect expenses. Oh, here we go. So yeah, you might be saving up for a projector or TV. You know, when I was an officer, that it was the year I was an officer 3 years ago that we got a TV. We also have a very, very old lectern. And come to think of it, it's not a podium, it's a lectern. Notice I put Toastmasters scholarship 0. That was a line item that they insisted I add, but then I put a link here to that scholarship thing about club funds. Here again, I did the same $45. Here's the calculation, $45 times the 23 members we expect to keep or hope to keep. And we expect to pay that in September because dues are due October 1st. Same thing in March because dues are due by April 1st. I'm hoping you've already written those dates down. Bonus points if you've already put them in your club calendar, or the very least your own calendar that you actually, the calendar you use, right? Not the calendar you hope to use, the calendar you use. And at the end of every meeting and every email you send to your club members, there should be a blurb during the month of September and during the month of March, dues are due. Of course, if you're a corporate club, you might be talking to HR or accounting, say, hey, we need to pay our dues to Toastmasters. Have you done that yet? But you're still sending emails, you're still sending a reminder, and you as treasurer are responsible to making sure that the dues are paid. Any questions?
Nick, I had a quick question. I know you have member names in here. Would it be possible to duplicate this spreadsheet, this whole thing, and then replace member names with name 1, name 2, name 3, and then maybe share this spreadsheet with us? Because it's an incredible spreadsheet.
Yes, it would be possible.
That would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send my phone number too. You're welcome to text me with questions, or we can set up a Zoom screen share to work through any specifics. But yeah, I'm happy to do that. Let's see. You know what? I'll leave this unchecked to be as a prompt for me to do that, and replace names and such before sending. Okay, but I definitely gave a budget example. Signatories. So as you all were having your TLI moments ago, I was at the bank getting signatories transferred, so I had access to our club bank account. I'm curious how you all do that. Just knowing what I know about Toastmasters clubs in general, we sort of make things work however they can, or however they make sense. So I'm curious, like what kind of bank account setup you have, to the best of your knowledge. I understand you've only been on the job officially 17 days, so you may not know the answer. But is it a business checking account or a personal checking account? Which club officers actually have access to the funds? And I think I'll call on you. And if you don't know or don't want to answer, I understand, just say so and we'll move on to the next person. But let's start with Wally.
Actually, we have a free account. It's our banks, they give, and I think most of them do, they give you a free checking account if you are an organization, a service club, and that raises a question, since officially I found out today, Toastmasters is not an educational club, but I'm sorry, Toastmasters is not a service club, but an educational one. And I know service, so we have a free account. And what we use is a debit card. We can write checks. We got checks. They gave us free checks, but that was back in a different day. So we have checks, but we haven't used checks in years. But the debit card we use regularly.
Okay. So yeah, we too, we're listed as an educational 501c3, but they still give us a business checking account. And it is free. Not every bank does that though.
Okay.
We moved to regions because the bank that we were banking with started charging a fee, a checking fee. Even though we were a 501c3, even though we demonstrated the documentation for it, they were like, I'm sorry, it costs us to make a checking account and you're using a checking account, so we need to cover those costs. Like, okay, well, we need to save money, so we're going to another bank. There was something else that, so when a new Toastmasters year starts, Wally, do you just hand the debit card to the next treasurer and give the login to the bank account to the next treasurer? And
You have to go change it.
Yeah, but the catch to that is over the last, I think, about 14 years, I've been the treasurer. So that's something that's going to be changing hopefully in the next couple of years. And then in which case, what we would do is give the new treasurer and myself, we'll go to the bank and we make the change over.
Yep. Yeah, for better or for worse, we have a new treasurer every year. So we've started to systematize it, but for everyone's benefit, as I understand it, there's basically two kinds of documents you can send to change the signatories. You either have a meeting minutes document printed of your election that shows and signed by your secretary, but shows who your former officers were and who your new officers are. And that can be the paper trail they need to switch people over. Alternatively, whoever is presently listed as the signatory can write a letter that says these signatories need to be removed. All existing debit cards need to be, deactivated. And these two people need to be made signatories. And those two people need to be issued debit cards, right? Like just sort of list out everything and then let that signatory sign. And then that transfer can take place.
Well, I think that's up to probably the financial institution. They all do it differently. Well, we're like Wally. We have an account at the credit union and it's free. It's a business account, but it's free. And we use a debit card. As he said, we haven't written a check in years. So,
sure.
Just out of curiosity, your debit card is in the name of your club with the name of the treasurer underneath.
Yes.
Okay, that's how ours is. It's Cookville Toastmasters, but it has my name underneath it.
Right.
Great.
Okay.
Stacy, what about you? As far as you know, how is your bank account organized as a club?
We are set up with a business account at the credit union. We like to keep at least two people, if not three. So the treasurer and one other officer at least, maybe two, so that we know that we have access if something happened to the treasurer for some reason or another. So we always keep additional names on the account so that they have access to it. So we operate pretty much the same way as everybody else.
Great. Yeah, I think I can't remember where I found it, and it's been a while, so that may have changed. My understanding is that the treasurer, president, and secretary, according to Toastmasters, should all be signatories. My estimation, if you're only going to do two, it should be the treasurer and the president. That's personal, not official. But yeah, I definitely agree that there needs to be a backup, right? My first term as a treasurer, I met my predecessor once, and it was 6 months after I'd taken the job. He stopped being a Toastmaster. He disappeared. Nobody ever heard from him, and we had to figure out how to get access to all the club funds without him. And it was such an ordeal. It would have been a lot easier if you had access to somebody at the club who had the authority, according to the bank, to make that transfer of power.
We've had a couple of clubs that got into that issue where the treasurer just left and didn't leave anything, any instructions, anything. So you got to figure out how to get them off. So maybe they don't spend club money and they get somebody else on. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Sure. Next on my list here is Monica. You organized differently?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to find out exactly how we are. This is my first year actually in Toastmasters. So
great.
My first time as a treasurer. So, well, I've been a treasurer of other organizations, but this is my first time as treasurer for my local Toastmasters group.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. Glad you accepted the responsibility. It's its own kind of reward for sure. And yeah, good luck finding out. Let me know if I can help somehow. Sonia?
Hi. It's my understanding that we do not have club funds, that the only funds we're collecting are the membership dues that are sent directly to Toastmasters International. We do have, I guess, like banners and officer pins that have been purchased in the past. So we are TGL Toastmasters, and our sponsor is the Department of Human Resources for the state. So I think my job is pretty straightforward. I do not have to be balancing a budget or anything.
Okay. Well, I'm curious then with that, because I want to make sure that our treasurer trainings fit, or at least serve to some degree, all treasurers. What responsibilities are you aware that you'll have as treasurer when so much is handled for you?
So I would be collecting all the payments to my personal account and then turning around and sending a cumulative payment to Toastmasters International for the biannual dues. And then anytime a new member joins, I will be collecting the payment for those and then sending them on to headquarters, basically.
Okay. And by headquarters, do you mean your department?
No, directly to Toastmasters International.
Okay.
And Sonia, you said that you deposit it directly into your personal account?
Yes, that's my understanding. And from the previous treasurer, when I spoke to her, she said that's what she did.
I think if I were you, I would definitely set up a club account so you can keep that separate. And so it's so much cleaner that way.
It is. I'm not sure if we're allowed to or not. So that's something I'm going to have to either take up with our president, or I'll have to talk to the Department of Human Resources. I would rather have it separate as well, just to have a club account. But if they're not allowing us to seek club funds, maybe their argument is, well, what's the point of having one if all you're doing is sending money to the international? So that's something I can take up. But I feel like if these officer trainings have occurred previously, this would have come up before, but I'm glad to take it up again.
Well, like I prefaced this talk, that I feel like these breakout sessions, it's impossible to train everyone on everything that is entailed in anybody's role, especially in the course of 50 minutes to an hour. So I've noticed that sometimes the trainings are heavy on the what but not necessarily the how. So
Agreed.
if the treasurer was instructed to, put the funds in your bank account to then send to Toastmasters International, well, the trainer might have meant your club bank account, but if the treasurer didn't have a club bank account or didn't know about it, they might have heard their personal bank account. We're all learning to communicate, and words are hard. So there's lots of room for miscommunication and wires getting crossed. And yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for you to have things straight so that
Sorry.
No worries. Whenever there's a question, there's no question as to where the money went and in whose account it sat.
Right. Yeah.
I doubt you want, if anybody has a question about where these funds came from or when was this paid for, you don't want to have to print your personal bank statement and show people, your Amazon transactions mixed in with TI transactions.
Agreed.
On top of who knows what kinds of things with, say, like IRS and so on. And I would love to help you convert that. I can provide documents that we've used to help get a club account established. In fact, Wendy, I know I need to ask you as well, but I want to find and show where you can get your club's EIN number. This is something you'll need to create a business account. You don't want to use your social security number because 5 years from now, when there's another treasurer or there's been 2 or 3 other treasurers, they're not going to know your social, right? They're not going to have access to it. And then again, it ends up looking like your personal account instead of a club account. So somewhere in Club Central is a way to get at that information. I'm going to honestly guess and check, as I prefaced before. Let's see. Okay, not seeing it there. There's probably an email address you could email to ask.
It's on the same place where you change your officers and
it's under club demographics.
Okay, club demographics.
See, I told you we're a 40-year-old club, but here's don't write this down because this is the EIN to our club, not your club. I'm going to scroll past it. This is also why you're here, though, an excellent, if you're curious about what your club EIN is, this is a great opportunity to make sure that this information is up to date, that whoever is your designated person to receive mail on behalf of the club is updated. At our club, it's the president. At your club, it might be the secretary. Same with some of this, like all of this information might be wrong. Don't let it be wrong. So I think Wendy, how are you all organized as far as bank accounts go?
We run ours exactly the same as Stacy and Wally had said. We have a nonprofit business account that is free to us at the credit union. And we have a debit card that we pay everything with through the debit card, or I have a checkbook that I can use also from time to time.
Gotcha. Cool. Templates. Let's see, need another show of hands here. I'm going to stop screen share so I can see everyone. What was my question? Who all uses Free Toast Host as a club? That's the club website with the agendas. Cool. That's recommended. I think it makes so many things about functioning as a club easier or unnecessary. You veteran Toastmasters, you probably, thank you, Monica. I see you raised your hand. You probably know about this already, but maybe not, because there are features and things you sometimes have to turn on in the club website. So in the members only section, if you're listed as the treasurer and your free toast host is organized as such, you hopefully have access to this treasurer function of dues. If you don't, talk to your webmaster. If you don't know who your webmaster is, talk to all your club officers. Somebody's going to know. If no one knows, then I can probably work with you on that to figure out how to unlock your club website so that you can modify it to your needs. And maybe after I show you this treasurer function, maybe you don't even need it. But what this is a dashboard or interface to help you as a treasurer manage due collections. In this format, you can actually send invoices. So here, this is my predecessor. I can update this now with my information. I'm going to hope that, actually, go. Last meeting dates, members can hand in a check. So each time we go around to collect dues, this gets changed, right? But it's going to be September, and I'm going to say the 25th. We meet on Saturday mornings. Last date members can hand in a check. Okay, checks must be received on or before. You know what? I'm going to make that the 25th too. You just get to see me use it. So much better than a slideshow, right? And Smyrna, Tennessee. Okay, and see, there's this form letter. You can adjust it however you like. Chances are, if you are a spreadsheet nerd, you can understand and appreciate these variables, meaning that this isn't what the recipient sees. What the server does, what the system does, is auto replace this value with the lookup of what that value is. So in this case, this will auto change to my email address. I've put in the variables here, and now this letter will update automatically to meet those variables. It looks like somebody hand wrote some things, so I can change this to Trez. That way, my successor, when they come in and update this to their name, this email form will update automatically, and they don't have to go in and check to make sure that all the information will be right. It'll just be right. So if you know Brian DeCure, feel free to pick on him and tell him I said you could pick on him. Just tell him I sent you, because I pick on him all the time. He's my mentor in Toastmasters. And so there's not an option here for phone number. So that I will hard code in here. Maybe figure out a way to fix that so that's not necessary. Let's see. Again, if for some reason we change our price, maybe we stop collecting dues as a club, or we stop collecting club dues, we can just change this to 45 and know that this will get updated appropriately. So I'm going to save this info. If you click close without saving, it doesn't save your changes. I think if you change tabs, it might lose your changes too. So just err on the side of saving, get the notice that it's been saved, and then go to the next thing. And see here, it's showing me it's auto replace of things. I guess member name. Either member name doesn't work anymore, or it just doesn't know what member name to show me, because this is, a template. And it does the lookup of the member name dynamically. and then send notice track. So this is where you can track your stuff. You might see some mess here. That's just stuff that happened from your predecessor. There's a reset all button to clear this and start fresh because, it's a new dues term. But you can see that these days, some of these options are kind of out of date. So most of this stuff is going to be, looks like my predecessor used direct deposit as other, and then just put a note as to what method was used. These are radio buttons all across, meaning only one of these circles can be clicked on at any given time. And note, here's what this says: notices will be sent to those members that are checked in the left send column. So here I'm going to click reset all. Nice little warning message. Make sure that you read it. Are you sure? Yes, in this case, I am sure. Everything gets cleared, notes, check boxes, and everybody's sent to send. So now if I clicked update and send notices, every one of my Toastmasters members is going to get an email, actually is going to get this email that explains how to pay your dues and when dues are due by, in order for me as a treasurer to process them in a timely fashion by the deadline that is October 1st. Pretty handy tool. Of course, you're welcome to use email and spreadsheet. Oops, I didn't mean to close. But this is there for you if you want. If you don't already have a system in mind or in place, it's pretty handy. But as members pay, you just check that they've paid. That way, when you send an update again, it doesn't ask people who've already paid to pay their dues. So this is literally a checklist. There's also a dues follow-up. So with free Toast Host, you actually get a number of different out-of-the-box emails. And so long as you email this address from an email address you've registered with your club site, you can email these email addresses directly. You could also use the free Toast Host web interface to draft up an email to people who have not paid yet. And these lists are filtered by, you guessed it, these checkboxes. I'm curious about this dues status report. Oh, so you like spreadsheets. This is kind of a spreadsheet. Yeah. Any questions?
Nick, is it possible to link, say, a Venmo account or PayPal account to your website so that the members could just go in and click the button from here and pay their dues?
Well, members can't go to this interface at all.
No, I mean to the website, though. Is there a place you can put it on your website so they could come to your website, click on, say, for instance, pay dues, and it would take them to PayPal, or it would take them to Venmo, or they'd have a choice maybe? I don't know. Is there an easy way to do that from here?
That's a great idea. I don't know why I've never thought of that. But yeah, you could have, your webmaster can add sections here, and one could very easily be pay your dues. And that just be a web page that has links to, like you said, PayPal or Venmo. Who knows, maybe even a Square interface. I love that idea. I want to.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea if we can figure out how to make that work. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm going to research that. Research.
Let me know what you find out.
I will. I'll let everyone know whether you are curious or not. Research FTF and accepting payments in website. Cool. Any other questions about the club website and the treasurer function? or ideas. If you're raising
Hey,
your
Nick, I didn't want to interrupt, but we were going to close the breakout rooms in about 2 minutes.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. What else did I have? Recommended that. Asked that. Yeah, I did that. Okay. So I have a couple of takeaways. In fact, I should have researched accepting payments. Yeah, we're good for going in 2 minutes. If you all have questions, I'll put my email in the chat. And gosh, why did I create such a long email address? And you can also text or call me. Just know you'll go, if you call me, it'll go through a screening service. So say who you are. But yeah, we're good to go. With our
This
remaining.
has been fantastic, Nick. This is great information. Thank you for sharing all this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll find out. I'll get your contact information somehow, and send the custom template that I made for budget, as well as whatever I find about creating a payment page.
Yeah, you've got the recording. If you want to do a screenshot of who all's here, you'll at least have our names and you can get it to us. That'd be great.
Yeah. Screenshot taken, I think. There it is. Yep. Thank you all for the ideas, contribution, questions, and attention.
Thank you, Nick. That was fantastic. Appreciate it.